reminding you that it is the World Cup, and there's plenty of shows here about the World Cup. For those of you who are interested today, Canada gets underway, and so does the U.S. The Canada game is at 3 p.m. and then back at 9 comes the battle with the United States. So there's the two World Cup games for today on Fox. Both of them are on Fox. So if you want to watch them, that's where you can find them. All right, Matthew. All kinds of interesting little things going on here today. Let's we started talking about the UFC fight. Um, the physical grounds, the White House. You could probably play a touch football game there, or flag football game there. You probably could play, I guess, although I'm not sure it would work out well. You could probably play soccer there too. Um, but beyond that, I'm not overly sure what you know what you can and can't do. And the UFC fight, they're gonna have seating for about 4,200. So it's a makeshift thing, but I really don't know, how you do it. But again, I don't want to it's not political. It's not something that you're ever going to see on the lawn. I mean, basically, that's quote unquote the people's house.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, you're not going to see. You're not going to. I can tell you right now, you're not going to see a UFC fight at 10 Downing Street. That's not given. That'll never happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just we were talking about it. I said it feels strange, like that this is for the venue that they're having. Like this feels like a strange event. To have in that venue because it is like if you're going to have something, you feel like you'd really do it up. And in all honesty, you told me that it was this weekend. I didn't know it was this weekend. Now maybe that's me not being very tuned in on the UFC and MMA in general. Looked at the card. It's not a bad card. The undercard, is solid. They put together a solid card, but still, it feels like in terms of what this event should be and what you would want it to be, it hasn't been advertised well enough, I guess. I mean, if I'm like, because I mean, I'm pretty online personally. I spend a good amount of time on Twitter, looking at different sports stuff, and this like I've seen it in passing, over the past like month, but I was not aware that it was this weekend.
Yeah, it's this weekend, and we'll it's on Paramount Plus, which would be CBS, streaming it. Um, so I guess the best thing we could say is at least they're not pay per viewing it. That's a
Yeah,
good. If if that's our saving grace, then we'll take it. Um,
yeah.
anyway, let's move off that. And last night, Carolina came through. They won. Now, you know, they have to just win one more, and they've got their cup. Um, I think that again, these are very closely played games, and last night was no different. And it got, um, Carolina was able to sneak out of there with the win, and so we go to Vegas, and then from Vegas back to Carolina if we get past tonight. I mean, not tonight. On get past. We get past. It's. I guess it's on Sunday
Hmm.
evening.
Here, hang on. I just had it. Yes, Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we discussed, or at least I drew the comparison. When you looked at the two series, the finals going
Mhm.
on right now as well. At the outset of those series, you could like through the first game, there were similarities. Like you had your underdog win on the road, and you really kind of expected a fight back at some point. Carolina was able to fight back, and now they've put themselves in a position where they are in the they're in the driver's seat to go win the Stanley Cup. And then you also see the flip side of it, and you could also be on the Spurs side of it.
Mhm.
They did not, they did not come out that next game. They did not handle their business, and now they're in a whole 3-1. Like it 7 games can feel like a long series, and it definitely is. And you're never, you're as long as the other team hasn't won 4 games, and you're never out of it technically. But you can see the momentum in the series, and you can see how like I think it shows just how pivotal that game 2 was in
Mhm.
both of those series. Carolina winning theirs, now they're in a position where they're able, they went and stole one on the road, came back home and won their game. Like now you're in the place that you want to be because you
Mhm.
were able to bounce back after losing that one at home, and you've defended your home ice since then. Same can't be said for San Antonio, and they were not able to bounce back in the same way. Carolina's been able to build that momentum, and really, in a big way, a team that was just coming in and they were so hot in Vegas,
Yep.
they've kind of been able to stymie their momentum as well.
Yeah, I just think that I think Vegas has got at least one more win in them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is going to go 7,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay with me. And that takes us to Saturday night, where yesterday we discussed the uh, the coaching and play of the San Antonio Spurs. Um, I, I believe that there's something to play, when you're playing in front of the home folks, and I think that place will be crazy. Um, and hopefully they'll learn from their mistakes that when you have the opportunity to close it out, you got to close it out.
Yeah, I think there was going to be a significant amount of work done on the part of the San Antonio coaching staff, going back and looking through the 4 games that they've been in, trying to really pinpoint, the place where they went wrong, where they can game plan better, and where they are able to attack better in that second half, because they just flat out have not been great in the second half. Specifically, again, talked about a lot yesterday, but in that fourth quarter, so they have a tough task ahead. But at this point, it and it feels odd because Stefan Castle gets up to the podium after they lose, and we're like, okay, got to go win 3 in a row. And it's not that that's necessarily
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that where the problem lies with Houston, with San Antonio, is the lack of not the lack of. I mean, most of these guys have been in major games, right?
Mhm,
But it's not like they have been in NBA championship games,
mhm.
and basically you can say all you want to about, okay, let's just go make this not a game that we have to worry about, and that's what I would say. But let's be fair, we would have to worry about it. So yeah, I think that it's Saturday night. We'll see just how good San Antonio is at adapting.
Yeah, again, it's going back to that mentality and what Steph Castle said. You like to just believe like you're going to go out and win 3 games, and that there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong. But I feel like if you're looking at it like we're just going to go win, I don't love that mentality. It has to be game by game. Like you
Right,
have to focus on the attack. You can't just go out there thinking like 3 in a row. Like we've got to win this one, for our lives.
right.
And then you regather and you're like, we got to win this one for like it's got to be.
Mhm.
They need to make sure that it's separate events. It's like it's the same thing as like you can't come back like in a baseball game. There's no swing that's going to get you 5 runs,
No,
right? So you can't compound errors and go out there swinging out of your shoes trying to get 5 runs on one swing when it's just not possible. You
right.
have to take it step by step. And I think that's probably where San Antonio, like, they need to be. They have to grow up
Hmm.
now. Like there's no more time. You really thought that they grew up in that Oklahoma City series. Uh, I guess we were mistaken a bit. I mean, that's a hard series to win. Don't get me
Well,
wrong.
they're both young. I mean, to
Yeah,
be honest.
but they have to grow up
Mhm.
now. Like there's no more time, no more room for error, no more growing pains. It's like now you're an adult. Like go out and do it, basically.
Yep. Put on the big boy pants. Okay. All right. I'm going to pull you into the X situation here because I'm getting a pretty strong flow. The topic is there any teams, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, University of North Carolina, all of whom have been in one way or another linked to a potential move to the Big Ten or the SEC? My theory of the case was they don't need them. And if you're gonna bring, if you're coming to the party, you got to bring something with you. And right now, I don't think, FSU has been somewhat relevant. I'll use that phrase. Clemson, somewhat relevant. I mean, they've fallen off from what the brands were. Does that mean that they'll never come back? Of course not. Miami's got um, has had a couple of good years under Cristobal, but it ain't Jimmy Johnson. So, and Carolina's never won anything that unless it's been in basketball. So I'm sorry, I can't figure out a way where you tell me that FSU or Clemson, UNC, Miami, fill in the blank, is worth $75 to $100 million.
Yeah, I mean they just don't bring like to these conferences individually. They don't bring the value it outside of it. Like again, like North Carolina and Florida State and all that. They don't fit in the footprint of the Big Ten, and I know that the Big Ten's trying to be like what is in effect a national conference. When you have really the SEC that dominates the South, and that would be them dipping their toe into the South, and that would make them more national. But they don't bring enough to the table in terms of the overall athletic success that they have on a consistent basis. And to be honest, they don't bring enough like regional rivalry. Like there's no yes, like maybe like I don't know, North Carolina versus Ohio State in football is not getting me up on a Saturday. Like that's not a matchup that's going to do it. Right now in their current state, Ohio State and Florida State's not a matchup that's getting me up on a Saturday either. Like they're names, and that's what they are. But in terms of the success that they have on the field, and I mean, this is for some of these programs. This is speaking to their athletics department as a whole. It's just not been good. Not been good enough to garner $75 million a year at least.
Here's one. Here's a question for us. We'll handle it. John D says, from the Big Ten perspective, those that believe Florida State wouldn't be a value add, and they ... I'm 100% confident their opinions would change within 2 seasons. Obviously, you got to get invited to prove it. Well, yeah, John, you do. Number one. Number two, I don't see where having them in the building for, having them in the conference for a couple of years is going to get things moving. I have a question for you, Matt. You're a college football and sports fan like myself. You're far closer to having been in college than I have, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. If Georgia were to take an invite from the Big Ten, would that upset you?
Greatly. I mean that's no, absolutely not. That would. I think I'm being generous when I say piss me off to no ends. If that ever happened, like it's just again, there's a regional aspect to college football, I think, that needs to stay in place. There's an aspect of this, like, they, and when I say they, decision makers, money people at the top of this sport has seemingly made every decision possible over the course of the last 5 to 6 years to tear apart this sport at its very, at its very basis. They've torn apart the fabric of what this sport once was. They've changed it. And to be honest, at some point it's got to stop, because at some point you transition out of it and you're going to lose the fan base that you accumulated. I mean, just flat out, plain and simple. There's always going to be people that are going to turn on the TV and watch it. But when you lose the core of your fan base like that, there's layers to pretty much everything. In college football fandom, there's layers to it, and there are different tiers. And when you lose that inner core and that inner tier, then you've lost your sport entirely. And the more decisions they make that continue to go down these paths, and you can point to Texas Tech, and that doesn't help right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many decisions that are being made in boardrooms. There's so many decisions that are being made in courtrooms that are tearing this sport, and not only this sport, but college athletics as a whole, apart. And it's just piece by piece. They didn't take the dress and rip it straight in half. They're just taking little pieces, little piece by little piece, and all of a sudden there's going to be nothing left. And so as change comes, like, listen, not all change is bad. I get that.
Right.
But in the case of college sports and the way that things have been handled, they almost exclusively make god-awful decisions on an annual basis in terms of where this thing's going moving forward.
We got a question from Johnny. I guess no relation to John who we just got.
Oh, hang on. I feel like I didn't touch on what he said, talking about FSU and being a value add. The reason that FSU, or the reason that he might think that FSU would be a value add, is because in 2 years, at the evaluation of $75 million a year, that means that FSU would basically be sitting there praying on their hands and knees, please God, Big Ten, come and save us, because they need that money. They're in financial hell right now. There's a reason that football team doesn't look good. Part of it's Mike Norvell and the way that they chose to build that roster, which was pretty much, we're going to bank on the transfer portal every year.
Right.
But another part of it is that when you bank on the transfer portal every year, you got to have the bankroll to go spend to the transfer portal. Right. They don't have that. And you're going to get a very similar product that you saw last year out of Florida State again this year.
And that wasn't good. Here's the thing, an argument I make, okay? Let's say, again, we're going to go back to Georgia. Georgia goes to the Big Ten, right? They're never going to be Ohio State and Michigan. They could win 10 titles in a row. I mean, is there a point to which you lose your identity as a college powerhouse in a conference? Like, it's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's LSU, it's Florida. It's, those are the core members of your conference. And it's the regional bank bragging rights that makes it fun. Why SC and UCLA left the pack to join a conference, which frankly, as good as USC could be, they're never going to be Ohio State and Michigan. Just like if you add Clemson and FSU to the Southeastern Conference, they're never going to be Alabama, Georgia, Florida, or LSU.
Yeah,
hell, even Texas. Even Texas is finding that out.
I'll just be dead honest. If Georgia had an annual series with Michigan, I don't give a shit. I genuinely don't care. Like, cool, that's fine, whatever. Growing up, I didn't go to middle school and high school and walk in the classroom and there was a bunch of Michigan and Ohio State fans. You walk in those classrooms, the people that you're with, you got Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Georgia Tech, Clemson. Like, there's a regional aspect to this. There's a reason why people at Georgia wanted that Clemson rivalry back, right? Like it's right next door. These are people that you intermingle with. I would rather beat up on a dog shit Tennessee team than play, Michigan. I don't care how bad they are. It could be a guaranteed win on the schedule. I'd rather play Tennessee. I'd rather play Auburn. I'd rather play Alabama. I'd rather play Clemson. I'd rather play South Carolina. Like that is, you have to protect the regional aspect of this because, again, they sold you the fallacy that these big matchups were going to come in numbers and the big matchups were what mattered. The big matchups were happening on every Saturday. They just convinced you that it wasn't good enough and that we needed to change it.
Well, a lot of it has to do with athletic directors trying to, to pump things up. Look, if you want to take a week 0 game and make it Georgia, Michigan, fine. That's okay with me. That's usually when they're played. Those are kind of the preseason bowl game type deals, right? But the other aspect of it that kills, and again, this is one of the reasons when I said that the SEC and the Big Ten are big enough that they don't have to add, is because what they found out, and lesser to the SEC, but far more to the Big Ten, is travel is not good. It's just rips things apart from a standpoint of the student athletes. Grade point averages have fallen. Everything in that regard has been a disaster. And I don't think Tony Petitti, somebody who I've known for many years, he's not a stupid guy. I mean, he's going to sit there and say to anybody who wants to listen to him, this is not a good plan.
Yeah, and look, this whole thing, the entire realignment, all these problems, they started off of football. They started off of this playoff that has led us to conference realignment and expansion and this, that, and the other. There was such a priority of chasing after the almighty dollar that they got when they expanded that thing to 4 teams, when they made that playoff, and the amount of money that it was able to generate, that they chased after it. And everything in the past, like it didn't matter how many red lights they were running, how many cars they were hitting on their way. They just kept going as fast as they possibly could to try and generate as much revenue. I mean, there's a reason that Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. It's not because, they really needed Texas and Oklahoma. It was because Texas and Oklahoma added a significant financial value in terms of selling the conference media rights for their football. Like that ESPN deal is it's because Texas and Oklahoma are there because they added that value. And so when you do that, all of that there was a laser focus on, we are going after football and we are going to build the strongest, most valuable conference that we can sell to these TV companies and these media companies, our rights. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter that the Olympic sports are in hell. It didn't matter that you have a situation this year where Stanford's flying to Charlotte, North Carolina, playing one baseball game, hopping back on a plane and going back. Like this is, they say that this is for the betterment of the student athletes, and they care about their student athletes. And I can tell you that's just a big old load of horse shit. Because if they cared about their student athletes, NIL would have been in place a long time ago. Right. They would have taken a lot better care of these kids a long time ago. But they don't. It's a really good guise that they can hide behind, and they do a really good job of hiding behind it. But they don't care. What they care about is how many zeros are going to be at the end of that check when they sign it come new media rights time.
Well, I had a former SEC, commissioner, Harvey Schiller, I don't think Harvey's going to mind me saying it, said that the adding of Texas and Oklahoma made sense because they were rivals. And they fit the profile of the conference, and the fact that they're not, from a distance standpoint, they still fit the SEC footprint, just expanding Texas into Oklahoma. So it's not. It's again. You can go from LSU to Norman maybe in a couple of hours on a plane. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so it's no big deal. You're not traveling cross country to get there.
Yep.
So it fit there. But the point was that, and it's a good point, they were the two best teams in the Big 12, and they had national brands.
Yeah, they were the Big 12's brand value in
Right.
terms of what they had. You were not going to replace that. You still
Mhm.
haven't been able to replace it in terms of the value that Texas and Oklahoma brought as their
Mhm.
brands. So, and they did fit the footprint, and that's why you almost sit back now with, I mean, at this point, how many years has it been post expansion? What is it? We're headed into year three, I think. This
Right.
24, 25, 26. Yeah.
Yeah.
Headed into year three. You can sit here year three. And to be honest, the SEC's expansion looks pretty good. And the Big Ten's, it it just continues to show like, and I may be misattributing the issues here, but I think a lot of this is Kevin Warren's doing, now with the Chicago Bears in their front office. um and it has a lot to do with him and these decisions, and where nobody's dying to
Mhm.
watch Rutgers truck it to UCLA on a Saturday, and that's the ramifications and some of the product that you're getting on the football field.
Right.
And that's just football. Like nobody's dying to watch that football matchup. And God bless those kids that go play baseball and basketball and the Olympic sports, and this
Golf. Yeah.
doesn't get the same numbers as football because
No.
they're just doing it because again, the guys at the top got greedy, and now you're paying for it.
Here's one. All right. How is North Carolina's financially a financial? God, Lord, people. Even if you don't have the question, if you can't write the question, AI the damn thing. Okay, so it can be read. All right. Yes, pardon me for that. All right. North Carolina is financially an additive and a media partner of the Big Ten and the SEC. It's like, are you kidding me? We just went through that. Carolina is not an ad under any circumstances to those two conferences. Just could UNC end up, in either of the conference? Sure, who knows? It's just like Missouri. I mean, do you really think that Missouri was that the SEC was looking out because they wanted to get in the St. Louis market? I mean, no, it made sense at the time, but that was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
Money is not floating out there in big wads of cash,
Yeah.
because networks are losing money, streamers are losing money,
Mm-hmm.
and so why am I paying for North Carolina to be in the SEC? There's one here that says, well, this is the kind of thing that ESPN wants so they can tank the ACC and just have one conference. Trust me, it has nothing to do with ESPN.
Yeah, and the sport got almost college athletics got almost out ahead of themselves in terms of the money that they're handing out. Like the financials of it all just don't line up for this being anything that can be sustainable long term in terms of the dollar amounts that are being tossed out there. And I think that's really the biggest reason why I don't believe there's going to be any expansion coming in the near future is because Greg Sankey and Tony Petita can look back and they understand like we can't really afford to add on right now. We're a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of where we are financially already. Now you're adding extra stress and extra burden on that if you're trying to bring in new member institutions.
Yeah, it's here's one from Kurt. Hopefully, the rest of college football pauses because of Sorsby and decides not to decides not to destroy itself, and hopefully recalculate sometime in the mid 2030s.
Yeah, look, I would like to give, I don't know if it's the leadership, I don't know if it's the PR, I don't know who the hell decided to do it,
Hmm.
but the Texas Tech Athletics decided to release a 22-minute video last night where they decided to sit down and talk to people and explain, this Brennan Sorsby situation.
Yeah.
And I mean this in
So,
the kindest way possible. Though those might be the hang on, let me double check my numbers. That might be the 5 biggest dumbasses I've ever seen gather around a table and in positions of leadership like they're in.
mhm.
Because one, the fact that you need a 22-minute video to explain this, I feel like it's a lot to start with. And
Right.
two, in the midst of the video, they admitted that they voted on a motion against wagering in college athletics by athletes, staff, like everybody. They voted against it,
Hmm.
and now they're sitting here. And why are they sitting here? Well, it's for the betterment of the mental health. I guess every institution in America, other than Texas Tech, just doesn't give a shit about their student athletes' mental
Right.
health, and that's what makes Texas Tech different. Uh, yeah, no, you don't. You are able to help and care about a student athlete while the athlete is still, you know, like
Capable of playing. Yeah.
listen, addiction is a real thing. You cannot take that away. That does not change what he did or the fact that actions do have consequences in the real world. And I'm reading it off of Brooks Austin's Twitter because he absolutely nailed it. Your admittance of an addiction does not rid you of the consequences of your actions in essence.
Right.
I mean, there's just no good way for them to that I, I mean that video probably did more harm for the image of Texas Tech and their athletics program because it was basically like, yeah, he did it, but we want to win, so he's going to play. Like that's what it feels like. And they just gave you, every like they might have just said, "Hey, Chat GPT, this is our situation. Give us a couple of reasons why we should do this." Like that's what it feels like. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. And they rambled on for 22 minutes. I wasted 22 minutes of my life watching that video.
That you're never getting back.
And I mean, it's the dumbest thing possible. This kid deserves ramifications for his actions.
Hmm.
Glad he's getting help. That's good, but it doesn't take away what you do, and it doesn't change the larger, more outreaching implications of what Brennan Sorsby suiting up for Texas Tech would mean for college football and college athletics as a whole this year.
Hmm. No, it's weird. I mean, it's just plain straight up weird.
Yeah. Hey, but don't worry. They suspended him 2 games. I think they're playing like Texas Christian and Sister Mary's School of the Blind. So
Well, there you go. So it all trades off in the end. Okay. Let's see what we got going on here. All right. We got Bill. North Carolina is barely worth 40 million, let alone 80 to 100. Okay. Um, there you go. We got Clutch Boring, who has a lovely gift, by the way. Here he's got paying paying the bill, and it's like dropping a bunch of nickels and dimes on a table. Okay, so he decided just to give us a gift instead. All right, we'll take it. We will take it. Let's see. We got PW. What's going on? Okay. I'm just assuming the SEC and the Big Ten will roll their dice on UNC, Miami, Clemson, and Florida State in some fashion, and network money will be there for those brands. Notre Dame will continue to make their own rules, and there are 4 value adds. The ACC will break up and end up in the Big 12. I mean, let me just start with something here. I am so over the Big 12 and their, sudden, cockiness, given the fact that had the Pac 12 not been so god awful stupid, they would not, if they wouldn't have gotten those four corner schools, and they would be, lucky if they had $20 million a year from their TV deal.
Yeah, they'd be lucky if they were playing on the CW every Saturday.
No,
I mean, look, correct me if I'm wrong, but the ACC media rights is in place till 2036, correct?
that is correct.
Yeah, so piss off. You get 10 more years of the ACC. It's not happening.
Well, it's let's go back just for those of you who do not understand that you cannot, that there's not an endless amount of money. Okay, having the ACC the way they are, and let's just say, for sake of argument, I don't think they're going to do it, but let's just say they do. Let's say that the Big Ten or the SEC picks one of these four teams, okay, or two of them for that matter. It's still cost effectiveness for ESPN, who has the rights through 2046, to keep that cost effectiveness right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why would you then, I'm not even sure they would want them to move to the SEC, because if they do, then they have to pay them more money.
Yeah, dude, look, ESPN has such a friendly, I think, relatively speaking, when you look at the Big Ten and the SEC,
Yeah,
ESPN has a pretty friendly deal, all things considered, with the
Yeah.
ACC, and the fact that thing is locked in for another 10 years.
Yeah.
You would be stupid, like, because I know people like to think that ESPN's back there, controlling the puppet.
pulling the strings. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they are, then you're not going to see any movement out of the ACC. So, like, it's just, I don't know. It's just, I almost think people talk to want to talk, and they think to want to think. But the matter of the fact is like the Big 12 isn't getting better overnight unless another Pac-12 comes along, because the ACC is locked into their media rights deal. It's as simple as that. I don't know if people tuned in a few years ago when Florida State tried to sue their way out, but they gave that one up pretty quickly. So, like, it's just not going to happen.
The thing that again, we're going back to finance here. Hate to bring that part of the deal up.
People typically hate common sense online.
Yeah, I guess. The point you have to understand, guys, is that Brett Yormark at the Big 12, and look, Brett's a good guy. All right, there's no, and he's the P.T. Barnum of this age. Okay, he really jacked the Big 12 up. Okay, good on him. He's going to do something that is, in my personal opinion, and again, Brett's a smart guy. He doesn't need me to tell him what to do. So I'm not saying that the gamble he's about to make is going to be a good gamble, but he decided that he was going to dump his deal with ESPN and Fox at the end of the contract and go free agent and put the thing out to bid. So you got the Big 12 is going to go, we're out to bid. And you just, and you're telling ESPN and Fox, sorry guys, I don't want to re-up on this deal. I don't want an extension. I want to throw it out into the open market, and you guys are going to have to come back and bid.
I'm not
that
saying
makes no sense whatsoever.
I'm not saying that a streaming company with like buku-doodles and buku-doodles of money is not going to come just inexplicably throw a bag at the Big 12. I'd be shocked if it happened though. Where there's a chance. Like I think he might be like this feels like a horrible idea with with when you look at the money that ESPN has committed to the SEC,
Yeah.
and again, mention that the ACC is locked into their media rights deal, so they have money committed there.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN's not going to come knocking back with a higher offer. Fox is probably going to be pretty content with their deal that they got going on with the Big Ten right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them wanting to, just go shell out a bunch of money. So where do you go? Like, who is your company? You guys playing on CBS? You going to see if CBS is tired of being, second fiddle in the Big Ten? See if they want to come bite. But I mean, CBS has a big deal with the Big Ten, where they're locked in place for a while as well, and they've got funds allocated there. Again, these traditional media stations,
Mm-hmm.
CBS, Fox, ESPN, they're financially strained. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you look, I think an article came out, discussing ESPN considering another wave of layoffs. Like that's where it
Mm-hmm.
is in terms of this stuff. So they're not just dying to go invest in what is, if I'm just being honest, a sub-tier product compared to the other things that they currently have under contract.
It's tier 2.
Yeah. And I mean, you're not dying to go pay a premium for tier 2 because that's what they're going to ask for. They're going to ask for a premium, and they're not going to get their premium.
Well, if you're going to learn anything, okay, if you're going to learn anything, learn from what happened to the Pac-12. All right, the Pac-12 went into negotiations with ESPN and with Fox, who at the time were their partners. Fox and ESPN offered them a number. They balked at the number. They came back with a number that wasn't even close to what the original number was. ESPN and Fox, upped the ante a bit more. They said no again, and then the window closed, and they never went back. Okay, this. Understand, they can find something that will fill that space. And you just brought up the the CBS thing. CBS is taking over. Well, but technically, it's Paramount taking over Warner Discovery. So there's that. That merger is working its way through the regulatory deals. But the reason that there was a merger was because Warner Discovery was hemorrhaging money at such a ridiculous amount that they needed, stability, and they needed a partner. So if you've got debt, and we're talking about debt, not just in the entertainment side, on the sports side as well. If you're talking about debt and you've got a portfolio, which Turner Sports has, and now it's under the auspices of CBS, and I've been told by people at CBS that CBS is going to run that show. I mean, it is not going to. Turner Sports is not going to run that. It's going to be run by Paramount. So that's a long way around to say that they're happy with the SEC. They cannot. I'm sorry, the Big Ten. They cannot jack up prices for Big 12 content. That when you're, I think what Brett, I'm not going to say he still has an opportunity to just say, you know what, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to sit down with these guys and work out another extension, right?
Mm-hmm.
He could do that. But I guess what I'm saying is that the streaming companies, which I have a very strong, understanding and some good contacts in there, they want premier stuff. That's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're going to get into this, they're going to go after a Big Ten or SEC Friday night game.
Yeah, and look, if you're Brett Yormark and you're sitting there right now, and I hate to continue harping on it, but you're watching your biggest brand destroy any ounce of credibility they have right now in
Mhm.
terms of what Texas Tech was willing to do financially, what they were able to build so quickly. They are just taking it. They lit a match. They poured gasoline all over it, and they threw the match. Like it's engulfed in flames right now in terms of what your biggest brand is doing to their brand as a whole. Like they're tearing the brand apart. That would scare the shit out of me after I made that bet on my conference
Mhm.
being able to kind of sell itself because right now Texas Tech is the premier brand. And to be honest, whichever team comes and dumps money and has a good season is probably going to replace it as the biggest brand because again they don't have that mainstay, they don't have that big brand that's been established for all these years.
Mhm.
They need somebody to work hard, and Texas Tech is willing to make the financial investment. But
Mhm.
good God, Brett Yormark, like if he's sitting there, I would be on the phone with Texas Tech leadership and be like, hey man, what the hell are you doing? Do you want to get paid this next cycle? Because they're tearing it apart. Like that's what they have. They have the schools from the Pac-12, and that helps. But they're not able to lead and really in a media package like that. That's not something that's going to lead. And to be honest, you need a bit more of a traditional Big 12 brand to be your lead going into it. Because if you just you pitch me Utah, BYU, and Arizona State, I'm looking at those. I'm like, well, yeah, they got the Big 12 logo next to their name, but they don't feel like Big 12 schools. So again, it's a conference that lacks an identity, and the team that was able to give them a bit more of that identity really kind of reestablish, what is. I mean, in all honesty, a mostly Texas-based conference. Um, it, they had the ability, and right now they're just burning it.
Yeah. Let's do this before we get out of here. Baseball this week. We always like to give people what's going on today. On Friday, it's Miami and Pittsburgh. That's on ESPN's app. If you have the app, it's tonight 6:30. Pittsburgh and Miami. Arizona is at Cincinnati. That's the Apple Plus TV game, the regional game. Atlanta and the Mets, which probably sounded at the beginning of the season like a good idea, but not so much now. Is on Apple TV. That's the backup game. San Diego is in Charm City on Peacock tonight. There's all three of those games are 7 o'clock. Yankees Toronto is on the MLB Network. The alternate game, or for those of you the for those of you in the local area, it'll be the Yankees in Toronto. Um, Dodgers White Sox is the alternate. Cubs Frisco at 10:30 is MLB Network's late game, and the Rays and the Angels are the alternate game on Major League Baseball's network there tonight. Tomorrow, St. Louis, Minnesota at 2 o'clock. That's on MLB. Yankees and Blue Jays 3 o'clock on Peacock. Arizona at Cincy. That's an ESPN app. Um, Atlanta and the Mets. That's at 4 o'clock on MLB. That's the alternate um, game. The main game is the Dodgers at the White Sox at 5 o'clock. FS1 has Philly at Milwaukee, and then Tampa Bay and the Angels at 10, followed by the Cubs and the Giants are the MLB network games and alternate games for Saturday, and then finally we'll run through Sunday real quick here. Peacock and NBC um, Sports Network will have Miami at PNC Park to face the Pirates. The Yankees in Toronto are on the MLB Network. San Diego, Baltimore, 1:30 on the MLB Network, which is the backup game. Seattle at Washington is ESPN's app at 1:30. At 1:30 on Peacock, it's going to be who's it going to be? It's going to be the Mets in Atlanta. Then the Cubs in Frisco are on ABC at 3 o'clock, and the nightcap on NBC is Texas at Fenway. So that's your your baseball card for this particular weekend. We already know what the NBA is going to be, and so we'll see. But that's where we are right now, boys and girls. So, in conclusion, Matt, why don't you give us one on our way out here? Why don't you sting us out with what's going on in golf?
Yeah, the RBC Canadian Open is on this weekend. It's been some good golf. It's just tough. I mean, I haven't been up there, but just based off what RBC attaches their name to, and doing
Mhm.
Hilton Head in this one, you would expect this to be a world class golf tournament, a really well put on event. Not the most difficult of courses. The cut's going to be sitting around 1 to 2 under par. Right now, it's currently sitting at 2 under par if the tournament were to end at this moment. But they still get some names. It's tough. It's tough being sandwiched, right here between the Memorial and the U.S. Open. It's a tough window because you're just not going to get the top guys to come play your tournament,
Mhm.
especially not with a U.S. Open at a venue like Shinnecock. But again, this is a solid tournament. The good names in the tournament, you really have some strong names up there at the top. Sam Burns is playing some of the best golf of I think his career. He's currently at 9 under and tied for the lead with
Mhm.
fan favorite Hao Tong Lee, who's actually he's 6 under today. He's playing fantastically, and everybody loves when Hao Tong Lee plays well. Brooks Koepka's at 8 under. He's one back along with Ryan Fox. So these guys that have been mainstays. I mean, even you look and you start thinking to next week and who's playing good golf this
Mhm.
week and projecting out because Shinnecock is it. Listen, they talked about it on the U.S. Open Zoom for the Golf Channel. A lot of these
Mhm.
guys talked about how this is really one of the more linked styles golf courses that you're going to get in the U.S. in Shinnecock, and so it can sometimes play to these guys that are they're from across the pond. They're from Ireland, the UK, and Robert McIntyre, a guy who hasn't necessarily played his best golf this season. He's at 6 under. He's tied for 10th. Shane Lowry's also at 6 under, tied for 10th. Those are two guys that haven't exactly had their best stuff, but seeing them play well this week would give you hopes going into a golf course that should really honestly fit their style a bit more.
Well, the other thing, and I've seen a lot made of about this, is that a lot of people like to go and play in the RBC up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a big, it's a fun deal, and they enjoy it. So I think the key there is, um, you know, having some fun, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they are right now. Is it's going to be um, an outstanding tournament for those who choose to play in it.
Yeah. Also, you still do have it looming. Brooks Koepka has yet to get like a full exemption into the signature events.
Hmm.
Again, a win does that for him. So that's what he's chasing this week, and he's 2 shots back because Hao Tong Lee made another birdie while we were talking, so he's at 10 under now.
Well, I mean, look, if you're Brooks, it makes a lot of sense to go.
Yeah, yeah, he's been willing in his return to the PGA Tour to play like whatever events really necessary. He played in Louisiana down at TPC. Oh, why am I just blanking on the name? It's the Zurich. He played at the Zurich. He played at the Cognizant.
Hmm.
In Myrtle Beach. He's played these really what are considered tier two events on the PGA Tour. He's been willing to play them when he hasn't been in signature event fields. So it'd be good for him to finally be able to work his way back because he's starting to play better golf. I think you listen to what he's talked about. It's almost exclusively been the putter. He feels like he's striking the ball well. He really has talked about how he loves the game of golf again, and it's the putter that's got to come around for him. He's playing well this week, and if that putter continues to get hot, he's going back to a place next week where he's already won a U.S. Open in Shinnecock.
Hmm. And I think that the joy of all this is to see that Brooks is humbling himself enough to play in the rules.
Yeah.
That's the way they set it up, and he could have taken him to court. He could have bitched about it in any number of ways, but he didn't. He said, "Okay, those are the rules. I'll play by the rules."
Yeah, and it's been I think you've kind of seen, and as you would hope and expect, but an evolution of Brooks Koepka throughout his career, whether it be his first stint on the PGA Tour, then to Live Golf, and then towards the end of his time at Live Golf, kind of transitioning into really who he is now. And again, it talked about the love. That's really what you want to see. Like these guys that are once at the top of their game. Sometimes when things go bad, I mean, I listened to Matt Fitzpatrick talk about the struggles he had after he won the Valspar and where he was at, even going back to a year. And there's almost like a relief that comes in playing good golf for these guys because there is an external pressure of, you were at this level. Why are you not there now? And it's something that I'm sure, honestly, probably weighs on Jordan Spieth as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're human, and people forget this. But you got to get that monkey off your back if it's at all possible.
Yeah.
And when you win, you get an opportunity to exhale a little bit and go, you know what? I'm not as bad as I thought it was. And, maybe I can be competitive again.
Yeah, it's such a confidence-based game, and it really is you versus you out there. Like your caddy's walking with you, and they can help, but it's all between your ears. It's a one-person game, and when things aren't going well and you get in your head, it can be an absolute island out there for these guys.
Well, remember, I mean, in golf, and then we'll wrap it up after this, but in golf, you might have a sponsor, you may not have a sponsor. These guys every week are going in there. It's not like they're playing for a team, right?
Yeah.
So you may be, you may make the cut, and you may have to, just to get home, at least at least land somewhere in the middle of that pack, or not too far down at the bottom of the pack, to pay to get yourself home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're not guaranteed a payday when you go to these tournaments.
Nope.
You're not guaranteed a payday that's going to cover your Airbnb and your flights and your travel and all that stuff and caddy fees and all these guys have physios and trainers and this, that, and the other. Like you have a team and you have to pay your team as well. So it can be financially. I think Ben Griffin, if I remember correctly, Ben Griffin's numbers is a bit higher, I think, than a lot of PGA Tour pros. But I think Ben Griffin said he spends about $50,000 a week when he's traveling in terms of being able to accommodate everything.
Which that's a lot of money when not a lot of money's coming back.
Yeah, if you miss a cut, you're 50 in the hole there. So
it's and like I said, some of these guys have sponsors, some of them don't. But it definitely is one of those weirdo things where you have to hope that everything lands right.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, you'll be out of money real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
All right, boys and girls, have a great weekend. Matthew, you have a good weekend, and we'll see you back on Monday, and we'll find out if the Knicks are going to be playing again, and we'll also see something about what Carolina and the guys are doing. So until then, have a lovely weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you Monday. Okay, bud.